Joe, I'm 17 and I'm from Cardiff. Well, I think really this film's about the unseen parts of Cardiff, based more, we've done Canton area, the bits you don't see at night, the bits you don't hear about on the news, like where my hostel is, it's the poshest place going, but at night it's a place you don't want to be. Really, you see the fighting, the dogs fighting, you see drugs, you see people walking around with plasmas in their hand, which they just taken from houses. I'm a youngster, I'm out with the kids, like I see much more than like some of you watching this might, and it's nice just for them to hear my story. Interviewed a lot of people, well, good characters, yeah, just the underground dark part of Cardiff that some people won't hear about. The first person we interviewed was Mike. He had some amazing stories. He got kidnapped, they grabbed his eyes and they were trying to pull him out. It was mad. Yeah, he was really interested, yeah.
I used to work here as a policeman in the 70s. I got badly injured in here, over here. That green building, they couldn't help me really because I was like a held hostage, someone trying to take my eyes out. What happened was the drug addict, he was on a certain drug. I don't know exactly, it's very difficult to explain. I locked these blokes up down the docks from nicking cars, in a stolen car, got them back here, and it all went bananas. He turned me, grabbed my eyes and tried to pull them out and kept them there, right? I had 6 months off work, I'd done all my neck and my eyes, they were all scratched inside, all across here, fingerprints, fingernails. Anyway, because you're young, you get on with it, 6 months, so I had neck problem, everything. And then about 6-7 years ago, they thought I had a brain tumour. And what it was where I had the original injury, like a bad whiplash, is what they think, one of the discs blew below the brain from the neck into the brain tissue. So they had to operate, get it all out via my neck. So one side of my body I can't feel, and that bit down where that level was, and this side is weak. And that's the result of what they think is stemmed from them. He'd become a person who was arrested he did 6 years for me, I think, for grievous bodily harm. But then he become like a credit card merchant, you know, nicking credit cards and stuff. Then he used to be locked up everywhere, and he always phoned me. Yeah, always phoned me, see how I was getting on and stuff. Funny, isn't it? But now he stabbed someone to death as well, so he's inside. Drugs. This is what the problem leads to, drugs. This is when you see drugs, because no one would kill anyone unless they're very ill, disturbed, drugs, drink, and most murders are killed when they don't even know what's happened. What other things? There was a time, this is not about the police force, Canton in the 80s, at the beginning of the 80s, you can look this up. Well, one time there was so much rain, it flooded all the way up to these shops, and they were looting the shops in canoes. And there was a circus at that time, and we were transporting, I wasn't, animals from the circus in canoes. And one of them was monkeys and everything. What other things? Interesting cases. Body up a chimney. And the bloke had killed either his daughter or his wife before he sold the house and stuffed her in the chimney. Got him, obviously. So there's a lot more that you don't see in Canton, like any city.
Like, you hear Cardiff's a bad place, but there's obviously there's all the bits you don't hear about. And just thinking, back then even Cardiff was bad, and people were looting in the canoes. I'm just imagining going into the shop, getting a couple of things, paddling off. Some mad stories, but hey, it was a good laugh. Next I met Lindsay. She was a friendly, smiley character. I found her really interesting because she can go to work one day and she could change someone's life so easily. She could get them a job, get them a safe place, and that's their life changed.
I've been working for the Job Centre for 15 years. to help the most excluded from society back into mainstream services. A lot of people got mental health problems, a lot of them have been trapped in the asylum system for a long, long time. They're not here by any sort of choice, they're here because something, you know, beyond dreadful has happened to them, and this is where they've sought sanctuary and luckily been granted. Most won't talk about what happened back home. You know, I hear some, you know, pretty shocking stories when people come from the Congo, but they tend to not relive any of that. They'll tell me what I need to know. The problems they have is they've left everything. Some of them won't even have, you know, they don't have identification, they might have all gone to university, they don't have any records or anything, but if they're splitting up from family members, most will have a husband back, you know, in their home country who's not able to come over, or a child, or many children. A lot of the older siblings would have been left. But it's quite tough going through the asylum system. I don't think people understand that they can't do any type of work, they can't do any type of training, they're not allowed to access any public funds. But the cost of keeping someone must cost the government so much money, because you've got to pay their rent and their council tax and they've got to, you know, their benefits paid, and they can't give anything back. So, you know, a lot of these are educated people who've left really good jobs, and to say you can't do anything for 6-8 years is, well, I couldn't imagine having to do that. So, for instance, I've got a lady I'm helping at the moment. She was a lawyer in Nigeria. She's been in the asylum system for 8 years, and now she's looking for work as a cleaner, even though she's really highly educated, and she set up her own charity here. So it is, you know, quite upset to see a lawyer working as a cleaner, but that's what happens. That's what's happening every day in Cardiff.
Next I met Lindsay's mum, Madeline. She was a quiet character, but she was really kind. She was speaking about her son who was living on the streets. She stayed strong, which I thought was really interesting. Just life can change so quickly.
You know, people tend to ignore them, like, oh, you know, invisible society and everything, yes. Maybe I was like that once. It's just like I said, the fact that, you know, my own son done it, and I just look at them differently now, and in some cases people can't help being homeless. Well, he was just on the streets for a long while, and it was during the winter months, and I mean, at the time I didn't actually know that he was living on the streets. He just took off the one day because he had a few mental health problems, and first of all I reported him as missing because I thought, oh, you know, and then the police did say they found him and he didn't want to come home, but he was safe, and that's all they told me. And I thought, oh, he's all right. And then we tried to find him, we couldn't. And then I heard that he was in Liverpool. Someone had sighted him in Liverpool, and yeah. And then I did go up to Liverpool with my son-in-law and searched the streets and found him. And then, yeah, he went to take off when he seen me, and then I chased after him. Sounds like a carry-on film, doesn't it? Chased after him, and you know, put my arms around him, cried like a mother does, and asked him why, and he just said he had a few problems, and fetched him back home. But he said he was living on the streets. He said, oh, it was, you know, awful, it was winter, sleeping in doorways, begging on the streets, and you know, and every time I look at someone now on the street, I think, oh, that could be my son.
Now he's living in America with his dad in a full-time job. I just find it interesting how just life can change so quickly. Next I met Fizz. She's a nice lady. She does counselling. I just found it interesting speaking to her and hearing her side of the story of how she can help them, why she helps them, and that she enjoys helping them.
Well, I was thinking on the way here that almost every problem that you can think of that an adult might have, there's a child that's affected by that problem.
What's the most common thing for kids to be there for?
I know this is not a good answer, but
Everything.
it's really, honestly, every single person, that's the point about counselling really, is you're trying to help the young person find out what their relationship is to whatever's troubling them.
Yeah.
And it could be something like that they don't feel that they're very close to their mum, but that comes out in something like, you know, them hitting the bottle or running away or not going to school. So you might have behaviour that is brought them into the room.
Yeah.
But that might not be the actual reason that their behaviour.
Yeah.
Certainly the medicalisation of young people who are designated as having mental health issues, it's definitely increased.
I find that there's some cases where maybe people have like depression and you just, well, not you, like the doctor just handing them out tablets where maybe they could get, like they could just be like have spoken help.
Yeah.
Do you reckon they're just giving tablets out when they could be sort of just like talking?
Yeah. And I think sometimes families think if they can't cope, if they're not coping, and they think, you know, that they can give a child a drug, a young person a drug, and that young person calms down for a bit. But what there isn't, you know, what it is it's much more expensive to have a kind of family intervention team or to supply good counselling services in places which young people can access than it is to give them medication. Personally, but not everybody thinks this, but I think myths about what medication can do. The evidence on drugs like Ritalin and other forms of medication for ADHD is very flimsy, and nobody really knows what the long-term effects of that kind of medication is on young people, and what effect coming off the medication can sometimes be really a real problem for the young person. I've had my
stomach lining pop because of fluoxetine.
Have you?
Yeah.
And what, you took too many of them, did you?
No, I was on 60 mg of fluoxetine a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the night. And I was also on risperidone, and I was like putting on weight and that, so you're meant to, if you're stopping, you're meant to just cut down. I just completely stopped, and now, like, if I eat like too much of heavy things, like it makes me feel like really like quite ill. And I had a donor X-ray, I call it a donor X-ray, you know, when you go inside that big circle, and where I've suddenly come off of where the body hasn't got used to it, it's like the lining of my stomach, it's like gone. So.
And they're saying that that's the effect of the drugs, is it? The medication you're on?
They're saying it can happen to anyone, but it was like 2 weeks after I suddenly stopped the tablets, it started happening. So they're saying that they can't prove it's due to the tablets, but in my mind, I know it's because of the tablets, I haven't done anything else. So. But
the drug companies don't want that down because it's something like £17 billion in America.
I found going on the tablets didn't do that much to me. I found when I was feeling low, just go out with your mates. That was the best tablet for me. Just go, not tablet, you know what I mean? Like it was better than a tablet. Just going out with the mates, going to the park, kick a couple of balls around.
Most problems you know the answer to in some way.
Yeah.
You know, like you're saying, if you can spend some time with some people your own age, having a good time, that's going to make you feel better than.
But then that's not always
it's not always possible.
Always for everybody. Some people might really bad and might need tablets.
Yeah, they might need help.
As well, this.
Next I interviewed Jim. He's a care support worker. It was nice speaking to him, like hearing like other situations children have been through in care, his opinion, the version that he sees from the children.
Well, I predominantly work with young people who are in care. It could be anything from mum and dad not being able to cope due to their dependencies on drugs, alcohol, or it could just be because the young person is unmanageable at home. I mean, we're seeing more of that as well now. Unfortunately, a lot of our young people do end up offending, usually around the 14 mark. They start sort of petty crimes, which sometimes escalates to bigger crime. There's quite a few assaults. Some of them get quite angry and go assaulting each other, so they get done for violence, and drugs as well. That's a problem, as you probably can guess. When they sort of get into the secondary school sort of 12-year-old, it takes them a year or two to find their feet, and then they all find into new peer groups, and then all battling each other then for the latest trainers, iPods, iPhones. If there's a gang of youths that see a little lad over there that's got something they want, 9 times out of 10 they'll go and take it. I don't think you could differentiate between some of the young people in care and some not in care. I was recently involved in a big court case with 8 young people on street robbery, and only one of them was in care out of the 8 defendants. So, you know, I think it depends mainly on the mix of young people that get together. But a lot of the young people who do get caught for doing things, they're sort of co-defendants are adults, and they range from various ages. I've been involved in court cases from where there's been 40-year-old men up on the same charges as, say, a 15-year-old boy, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem, is peer pressure. And also, I mean, I'm a firm believer in sports and team sports, or doing things together as groups, not necessarily sports. But most of the group activities young people want to do today involve hanging around town or hanging on group street corners. And I'm not saying all young people are like that, because I'm sure you're not, Joe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they faced a lot of different pressures to what I faced as a young person anyway. I mean, when I was young, it didn't matter what sort of trainers you had on your feet, you didn't get picked on, but some of the bullying that goes on now because you haven't got the right phone or the right trainers or the right jeans, the right tracksuit bottoms, society's changed so much.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be as much respect around for what will happen to them. I mean, we wouldn't dream of telling a teacher to FRO, whereas now they just don't mind. They're not scared of police telling them off. It's just all a big joke and a laugh to them. Values seem to have gone down. A lot of people find it difficult to get into education, again because of peer thing. They're missing out.
Yeah.
I firmly believe if you occupy your mind, you occupy your time constructively.
Yeah.
This is Joe Watkins. How old are you, Joe?
17.
17. When did you first come into the care system?
When I was about 12, I think.
And would you mind if we asked why?
I was living with my mum till about 12, and she's quite badly ill, and I hate seeing her in pain. So I used to constantly run away until the police really picked me up. It could be hours, could be days, could be a week, and the police used to just drop me back at my mum's. The next couple of days it might be okay, and as soon as I see her back in really bad pain, I'd run off again. It was hard for my mum knowing that I wasn't safe, I could be hurt, I might not even be alive. She never knew until I got brought home. And in the end, this was happening for a good couple of months, and in the end I was gone for, I think, probably about a week and a half, and I was going between like a couple of my mates' houses to the woods by my mum's. And one day I was at my mate's house and the police turned up and they said, "Where have you been?" I've been everywhere, to be honest, and they said they wanted to take me to a safe place, but I wasn't going in with the police because I was young. I was thinking police is bad, it's a bad place. I thought I was going to get arrested, so I asked if someone else could pick me up and take me there, and they got a social worker to pick me up.
What did care mean for you when you were 12 years old? What pictures did you have in your head?
The pictures I had in my head was you'll go in there, treated like shit, hit. All of this was in my head.
Why do you think that was?
I just, I don't know, it's a sort of picture. If you haven't been in care, it's the same with hostels. Everyone thinks they're full of bad people, but it's like the thing is in your head until you go there and you find out it's not actually as bad as you think. But
so did you? You say you were going into care. You thought you were going to get hit and shouted at.
Yeah.
And was it like that?
No, it was nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
My first place I went into Canton. It was hard because there was two other boys there, and they they were there since I think about 2, 3. I felt left out because that was basically their family and it wasn't mine. And because I didn't like it there, I was getting involved with the wrong crowd. I was doing drugs, stealing, like getting into fights, and I thought they were just going to move me to another place in Cardiff just to get away from there. But they moved me to Porthcawl. It was okay because I got away from all the stupid stuff I was doing, the crime, the drugs. It was hard because I could hardly ever see my mum because I didn't used to get that much money and I used to have to get a bus to see my mum. And I used to take money out of one of the ladies' purses. I used to run away, then police used to come and she can't lie, so she had to say, yeah, he's been here. But they used to come in and say, Joe, we have to take you back up there. That happened 12 times. I used to get a bit aggressive, argue back, and they used to have to pin me to the floor, put me in handcuffs to take me back up. Nothing went good for me when I was in care. They usually made it harder for me. They're there to look after you, but they're seeming to make my life harder, not let me see my mum, not let me get 2 phone calls a day to speak to your mum. That's stupid, but they're getting paid for it. Nobody cares what they're doing as long as they're keeping me safe, which half the time that doesn't happen. They just give me money, I go out, I'll just come back drunk. They don't care. I'll say, oh, I go up to bed, they don't care. Social services. I've had some good things with social services, like they've sorted me out with learning for life. I've got equivalents of A stars. They've sorted me out with jobs, interviews, sorted me out with work experience. Then there's the bad things where, yeah, we'll help you, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, half it never comes around. Or there's been a couple of them said they agree, they think not let me see my mum for a while. They said that was out of order because they're social workers, they're not the big bosses, they can say they can put a word in, but they'll never get that across. They're down here, all the big bosses up there who just sit there drinking a cup of teas, saying you can't see your mum. How would you like if you were a young kid and I just said you couldn't see your mum? You wouldn't just sit there and, alright then. But I can't remember the first time now it's happened, but then I finally moved back with my mum. I'd been jumped that night and I was just not feeling the best. My mum was in pain and I went upstairs, cut my wrist, and I needed 5 stitches across my wrist and my veins sewn back up, and they put me on antidepressants. And cutting myself was like a cry for help, but coming off antidepressants, I thought I was going to be exactly the same. I started going a bit downhill, but then I just found it easier just going out with the boys, having a little kickabout, having a little mucky fights, and that was my coping for me, not the tablets. I went back to school and started doing weed in school and got kicked out in year 10. And the police said to me, if you carry on doing that, you're going to end up in prison. So I changed my life around. I was working on a farm in Marshfield for about 8 months, and while doing a tutor, I got my GCSEs. I had the job, and then I was starting to get back a bit more into, didn't want to go home because of my mum. So I moved into a 3-day Grange Down, which is a hostel, for about 4 weeks, and then I moved into Fields Park Road, and it's a lovely place. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. They've got me in learning for life. I've got equivalents of A stars in maths. I've had jobs because of them, work experience, everything, and I still see my mum. If I want to go and stay at hers, I can stay at hers. So yeah, my life's changed around. I'm not doing any crime, not doing any drugs. I'm doing carpentry at college, so next year I'm going to finish my college course, so I'll have all the qualifications. So my goal is to be working in my own business, refurbishing houses, but you never know how long that'll take, so I might still hopefully be in a business with other carpenters, but hopefully in the end I'll be in my own business, refurbishing houses, hopefully a couple more trades under my belt. Yeah, that's my story.